After 15 years abroad, Charles returned home in disguise, not as the billionaire his family once knew, but as a man with nothing. He thought his siblings would embrace him with love, but what he discovered inside the family mansion left him shattered. At first, they welcomed him with smiles. But what happened next will break your heart and leave you in tears. Will Charles find true love in his family, or will he discover a bitter truth he never expected? Stay tuned to the end of this story, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful emotional stories. The evening sun was setting in the quiet town of Enugu when a tall, tired-looking man dragged a small, torn traveling bag down the dusty road. His beard had grown thick, his clothes looked faded, and his shoes were worn out. Nobody knew this man was Charles Obi, a billionaire who had left Nigeria 15 years ago for the United States. Nobody knew he once owned estates, hotels, factories, and luxury cars. Nobody knew he had once been the pride of his entire family, the one who lifted them all from poverty. Now, Charles was walking back into the very mansion he had built for his parents years ago. The mansion was still the biggest in the street, painted white with toll gates. But this time, Charles wasn't walking in as the rich son. He was returning as a man who wanted to test the hearts of his family. As he stood at the gate, his eyes grew wet. He remembered the day he handed the house keys to his mother, Mrs. Obi, while she cried with joy. He remembered how his siblings, Elijah, Henry, and Amanda, knelt down years ago and promised never to forget his kindness after he gave each of them money and built houses in their names. Charles whispered to himself, "Now let me see if they truly meant those promises." He knocked on the gate. The gateman peeped out, frowned at his rough appearance, and almost refused him entry, until Charles mentioned, "I am Mrs. Obi's son." Minutes later, his mother, Mama Obi, rushed out. She froze when she saw him, her son, looking unkempt like a beggar. Her hands shook as she touched his beard. "Charles? My son? Is this really you?" Tears filled Charles' eyes as he knelt down. "Mama, I am home." Mama Obi hugged him tightly. But deep in her heart, questions ran wild. How could her once flamboyant, wealthy son return in such a state? News spread quickly. By evening, the compound was full of luxury cars. Elijah, his first brother, arrived in a black Range Rover. Henry followed in a Lexus Jeep. Their sister Amanda and her husband drove in with a shiny Mercedes-Benz. They all looked sharp, expensive clothes, designer shoes, and glowing like people who had tasted wealth. But this wealth was not theirs alone. It was Charles who gave them the foundation. Charles who gave them millions to start businesses. Charles who built houses for them and even supported Amanda's husband with money to grow his company. Now they all gathered in the mansion's living room, their faces full of fake smiles and curiosity. Everyone wanted to know what Charles had brought back from America. Charles sat quietly, his bag on the floor. He looked at his siblings, remembering their promises of loyalty and gratitude years ago. He cleared his throat. "My brothers, my sister, I thank God to see you again after many years." Elijah smiled. "We thank God for your life, Charles. We heard you're back from America. We know you must have come with plenty blessings." Henry nodded quickly. "Yes, oh. We have been waiting for this day." Amanda leaned forward, her eyes shining. "Brother Charles, my husband and I are so happy to see you. We know God has been faithful to you abroad." Charles looked at them deeply. Then he sighed heavily. "I wish I came back with blessings, but the truth is bitter." The room went silent. Their smiles slowly faded. Charles bent his head and spoke slowly, his voice breaking as if with pain. "My family, I was framed in America. A business partner betrayed me. They accused me of a crime I did not commit. I was arrested, and after months of fighting in the court, I lost everything. My estates, my cars, my factories, all seized by the government. And after 15 years and abroad, I was deported with nothing. Not even $1 to my name. Gasps filled the room. Amanda's husband shifted uncomfortably. Elijah's face grew stiff. Henry cleared his throat but said nothing. Charles continued, his eyes wet with fake tears. I know this is hard to believe. But today, I am no longer the billionaire you once knew. I came back with nothing. My only joy, my only comfort, is that before my downfall, I was able to help my family. I built houses for each of you. I gave you money to start your businesses. I supported you so you would never suffer like I did. That is my only peace of mind now. He looked at them one by one. But today, I need help. I need you, my family, to help me bounce back. I cannot do it alone. The room grew tense. Nobody spoke for a while. Mama Obi's eyes were red with tears, but the siblings exchanged glances. Their faces showed pity, but also disappointment. The truth was sinking in. There would be no goodies from Charles this time. One by one, their smiles turned into frowns. Their hearts sank because the rich brother they came to see had returned empty-handed. That night in the mansion, after Charles had poured out his heart, his siblings one by one promised to help. Elijah leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and said, Brother Charles, don't worry. You stood for us in the past, and we will surely stand for you now. I will talk to some of my business partners in the city. Just give me some time. Henry quickly added, Yes, Charles. You gave me everything I have today. I will never forget. I will see how I can raise something for you. It may not be much, but I will try. Amanda, holding her husband's hand, forced a smile. My brother, you are the reason my children go to the best schools. You are the reason we'll live well today. Don't cry. I will support you with what I can. You are not alone. Charles' chest rose with a bit of relief. At least, they had not abandoned him completely. At least, there was still hope. But as the days turned into weeks, nothing happened. Charles would sit on the balcony every evening, staring at the gate, waiting to see if one of his siblings would drive in. But nobody came. One evening, as the orange sunset washed over the mansion, Mama Obi came to the balcony. She found her son sitting quietly, his eyes full of worry. She sat beside him and touched his hand. My son, have you heard from Elijah or Henry or Amanda? She asked softly. Charles shook his head. Nothing yet, Mama. Nobody has called. Nobody has come. It has been weeks. Mama Obi frowned deeply. Weeks? That is strange. They should have done something by now. Are you sure? Maybe they are busy. Maybe you should call them, my son. Remind them. I know your brothers. I know your sister. They cannot forget you so soon. Charles looked at his mother's hopeful eyes and nodded slowly. Maybe you're right, Mama. The next day, Charles picked up his phone and called Elijah. Brother Elijah, he said calmly, I wanted to come and see you in the city. I need us to talk. But Elijah's voice was sharp. Charles, you should have called me earlier. I traveled for a business trip. I am not even around. Don't worry. When I return, I will call you. Before Charles could reply, Elijah ended the call. Charles stared at the phone, his hand trembling. A strange heaviness settled on his chest. He tried Henry next. He dialed and dialed. No answer. He called again. Still no answer. For days, he tried, but Henry never picked his calls. Finally, Charles decided he could no longer wait. One morning, he traveled to the city to look for his brothers. When he reached Elijah's house, his heart skipped. The compound was full of parked cars. Music boomed from inside, laughter echoed. People were drinking, dancing, and eating. Charles froze. A house party? The same Elijah who told him he was out of town? As he walked inside, heads turned. People looked at him strangely, his rough clothes, his dusty shoes. He looked nothing like the host's brother. Elijah spotted him across the hall. His smile disappeared. His face hardened. He rushed to Charles. "What are you doing here, Charles? Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" Charles swallowed hard. I called you. I told you I wanted to come. But you said you traveled. Yet here you are." Elijah's eyes darted angrily. "Is this the right time? Can't you see I have guests? My house is full. You should have told me before coming. You cannot just show up uninvited." Charles' lips trembled. "But I am your brother. Can't I stay here for a while? Just one room." Elijah shook his head firmly. "I have no space, Charles. Maybe another time. Please, don't embarrass me in front of my guests." Tears welled in Charles' eyes. He stared at his brother, the same Elijah he once gave millions to start his company. The same Elijah he built a house for. Now that same brother was rejecting him like a stranger. Without another word, Charles turned and walked out of the compound. His heart felt like it would break. As he stepped into the street, he whispered to himself, "If Elijah could treat me like this, what about Henry? What about Amanda?" With shaky steps, he made his way to his sister Amanda's house. The road to Amanda's house was busy, filled with the sound of hawkers shouting and Okada men zooming past recklessly. Charles sat quietly at the back of a kidnapper, his torn bag on his lap. His mind was heavy with memories. He remembered the day Amanda got married. He had flown in from the U.S. and covered almost all the wedding expenses. He bought her golden jewelry, gave her husband money to start a business, and even built a 3-bedroom bungalow in her name so she would never suffer. She cried and knelt down that day, holding his hands. "Brother Charles, I will never forget this kindness. You are more than a brother. You are my father, my everything." But today, as the keek stopped in front of a big duplex painted cream and gold, Charles' heart pounded with fear. Would Amanda remember her words? Or would she, like Elijah, turn her back on him? The compound gate opened slowly after Charles knocked. The gateman stared at him with suspicion. "Yes? Who you dey find?" the man asked, looking him up and down. "I am Amanda's brother," Charles said softly, clutching his bag. The gateman frowned. "Which brother?" "Madam, no get any brother, we dey look like beggar." Charles' lips trembled. "Tell her it's Charles. She will know." Reluctantly, the gateman let him in. Charles stepped into the wide compound, staring at the flashy cars parked neatly. 2 SUVs, 1 Mercedes, and even a proto-jeep. His chest tightened. Wealth surrounded his sister now, wealth he had once prayed and worked for her to enjoy. As he approached the front door, voices and laughter spilled out. Amanda's children were playing around, wearing fine clothes. The living room glowed with chandeliers and leather sofas. Amanda herself walked out, wearing a stylish lace gown. Her face was full of makeup, her gold earrings dangling. When her eyes fell on Charles, she froze. "Brother Charles," she whispered, her eyes wide. Charles forced a smile, though his heart was shaking. "Yes, Amanda. It's me." Amanda hesitated. She glanced left and right, as if worried her neighbors might see. Then she forced a smile. "Ah, Charles, long time. Come inside." Charles stepped in, looking around. His eyes filled with tears as he saw the house he once invested in for her family. It was shining, modern, and beautiful. Amanda's husband, dressed in a senator attire, came out of the dining room. He paused when he saw Charles, his expression stiff. "Ah, Charles," he said slowly. "Welcome. It's been years." Charles nodded weakly. "Yes, I thank God for life." They sat down. Charles placed his bag at his feet, his eyes still wet. Amanda's children peeked at him, whispering and giggling, wondering who the shabby-looking man was. After a long silence, Charles cleared his throat. His voice shook. My sister, my brother-in-law. I know I don't look the way I used to. I came back from America with nothing. I was framed, I lost everything, and they deported me. But my joy is that I was able to make sure all of you are comfortable. I built this house for you, I supported your family. And now, I need your help. I need a place to rest, to recover, to start again. Amanda looked at her husband. Her husband avoided her eyes. She sighed, forcing a smile. Brother Charles, you know we love you. You know you are special to me. But things are not easy right now. Charles blinked, confused. Not easy. Amanda, look around you. This house is comfortable. These cars outside. Her husband cut him short. Charles, things are not always the way they look. We have responsibilities. School fees, business expenses, family duties. We cannot just take on another burden right now. Charles' lips trembled. He leaned forward. Burden. I am your brother. When you had nothing, I was there. Amanda, do you remember your wedding? Do you remember when you and your husband had no house? Did I not build this house for you? Did I not send you money even after you married? Amanda lowered her eyes. We remember, brother. But the truth is, times have changed. Charles' tears finally fell. He looked at his sister with pain. So you also? First Elijah, now you. You all promised never to forget me. But now that I need you, you are turning away. Amanda's children were watching, their faces innocent. One of them whispered loudly, Mummy, who is this poor man? Charles felt a knife stab his heart. Amanda's husband stood up, adjusting his clothes. Charles, we cannot accommodate you here. We don't have space. Maybe you should go back to the family house. Or talk to Henry. He is doing well. Amanda swallowed hard, her face tight with guilt, but she did not object. Slowly, Charles picked up his bag. His tears fell freely now, wetting his shirt. He looked at Amanda one last time. I gave you everything, and this is what I get back. He turned and walked out of the house. His steps were heavy, like a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Amanda stood by the door, watching her brother leave, her eyes glistening, but she did not call him back. As Charles walked down the lonely street under the night sky, he whispered to himself, So this is my family. Elijah has rejected me. Amanda too. Is this the reward for my sacrifices? Is this the love I thought I had? His chest heaved. His tears did not stop. But deep in his heart, something told him, the test was not yet over. Henry was next. With shaky hands, he wiped his face and whispered, I will go to Henry. Maybe, just maybe, one of them still has a heart. And with that, he continued down the road, disappearing into the darkness. The following morning, Charles set out early from Amanda's street. His eyes were swollen from crying the whole night. He walked to the bus stop slowly, carrying his torn bag, his heart heavy like a stone. Henry was his last hope. He remembered how Henry once knelt before him years ago, crying and thanking him for the money he gave him to start a company. Charles had even built a house for him too and bought him his very first car. Henry had promised, Brother Charles, even if the whole world turns their back on you, I will never forget you. Those words replayed in Charles' mind as he boarded a bus to the city where Henry lived. He clung to them like a drowning man clings to a piece of wood. By afternoon, Charles stood before a tall black gate guarded by two hefty security men. He could hear music and laughter from inside. One of the guards frowned at him. Yes, who you dey find? Charles forced a smile. I am Henry's brother. Please, tell him Charles is here. The guards exchanged looks, then laughed. Henry's brother? Looking like this. One guard hissed, Oga, no come here with story-o. Our ogre no get any brother we day resemble sufferhead. Charles' throat tightened. He begged, please, just tell him. He will know me. After some hesitation, one of them went inside. Minutes later, the gate creaked open, and there stood Henry, wearing a white designer shirt, gold wristwatch glittering, and holding a glass of wine. His face was sharp with irritation. Charles. Henry's eyes narrowed. What are you doing here? Why didn't you call before coming? Charles dropped his bag and bent his head respectfully. Brother Henry, I tried calling you so many times, but you never answered. I had no choice but to come. Please, forgive me for showing up like this. Henry's lips curved in annoyance. Well, you should have respected yourself. I have important guests inside. You cannot just appear at my house like this. Charles' heart sank. He lifted his eyes slowly, pain written all over his face. But Henry, I am your brother. Can't I stay here for a while? Just until I find my feet again. Henry sipped his wine, looked at him from head to toe, and smiked. Stay here. Charles, this is not a charity home. Things don't work like that. Charles' tears burned his eyes. He stretched his hand weakly toward Henry. Please, I have nowhere else to go. Elijah turned me away. Amanda too. You are my last hope. Don't push me away, Henry. I am your brother. Henry laughed dryly. Brother? You mean the same brother who once had everything and now has nothing? Charles staggered back, shocked. Henry took another sip of his wine. Listen, Charles. If you must stay here, then you must be useful. I don't need liabilities in my house. My gateman has been complaining he wants to travel for some time. If you want to stay, then take his job. You'll open and close my gate, wash my cars, and clean the compound. At least then, you will not be useless. Charles froze. His whole body went numb. His mouth opened but no words came out. He stared at Henry, the same Henry he once clothed, the same Henry he once gave millions. His own blood was now offering him a gateman's job in the house he had built for him years ago. Slowly, Charles' knees gave way, and he sank to the ground, tears pouring down his face. Henry, do you remember when you had nothing? Do you remember when you cried and I lifted you up? Do you remember how I built your first house? And today, you ask me to be your gateman. Henry's eyes hardened. Charles, the world has changed. Nobody owes anybody anything. You made your mistakes in America, and now you are paying for them. If you don't want to work, then go back to the village. I don't have time for pity stories. The guards at the gate chuckled quietly, whispering to each other, mocking Charles' humiliation. Charles wiped his tears with shaky hands. His voice trembled as he whispered, I never knew my own blood would despise me like this. Henry turned his back and walked inside, leaving Charles kneeling in the dust. The gate closed slowly behind him with a loud clang, shutting Charles out of his brother's life completely. Charles picked up his torn bag, his vision blurred by tears. His legs felt heavy as he dragged himself down the road. Each step echoed with betrayal. Children playing nearby pointed at him and laughed, thinking he was a beggar. Their voices stabbed him deeper. He whispered to himself through the tears, my brothers have rejected me. My sister has rejected me. Even my own blood has turned me into a stranger. God, what did I do to deserve this? As the evening sun disappeared, Charles walked aimlessly, his heart bleeding. The only place left for him was the family mansion where his mother waited. The moon was high above the quiet town when Charles dragged his weak body back to the Obi family mansion. His torn bag dangled loosely in his hand, and his steps were slow, like a man carrying the world's burden on his shoulders. When he reached the gate, Musa the gateman quickly opened it. Musa's eyes widened when he saw Charles' face. Ogre Charles, wedding happen? You day look like say world WAN end on top your head. Charles forced a smile but said nothing. His voice was gone. He simply nodded and walked into the compound. Mama Obi was seated at the balcony in her wrapper, fanning herself against the night heat. She had been restless all evening, her heart troubled like a mother's sensing her child's pain. The moment she saw Charles, her fan dropped to the ground. "Charles, my son, what happened? Why are your eyes swollen? Where have you been since morning?" Charles tried to answer, but instead, his lips trembled, and tears spilled down his face. He sank onto the chair beside her and buried his face in his palms. "Mama," he choked. "They have all abandoned me." Mama Obi froze. "What do you mean?" Charles wiped his tears with the back of his hand. His voice broke like glass as he spoke. "I went to Elijah. He lied to me, Mama. He said he traveled, but when I got to his house, he was having a big party. He chased me away, saying his house was full." Mama Obi gasped, her hands shaking. Charles continued, his words heavy with pain. "Then I went to Amanda. Mama, she refused me too. She said times are hard. Even her children asked who the poor man in the house was. Mama, my own sister." Mama Obi pressed her chest with her palm. Tears welled in her eyes. And then, Charles' voice cracked. "Then I went to Henry. Mama, Henry, my own blood. He told me if I want to stay in his house, I must become his gateman. Mama, me, his elder brother. He wants me to open and close his gate like a servant." At those words, Mama Obi screamed and clutched her chest. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks as she shook her head in disbelief. "No, no, it cannot be. Not after all you did for them. You sacrificed everything for them, Charles. You gave them life. You gave them comfort. You built their homes with your sweat. And now they treat you like dirt." She wailed loudly, her cry piercing the night. Charles fell to his knees before her. "Mama, forgive me. I thought I was testing their love. But now, I see clearly. They never loved me, Mama. They loved my money. Without my riches, I am nothing to them." Mama Obi pulled him into her arms, hugging him tightly as both of them cried. "My son, don't say that. You are not nothing. You are my blood. You are my pride. Even if the whole world turns against you, I will stand by you." But even as she spoke, her heart was breaking. The shame, the betrayal, the cruelty of her other children burned inside her like fire. She raised her eyes to the sky and shouted through her tears, "God of heaven, why? Why should a mother see this kind of day? Why should my children repay good with evil?" That night, after Charles cried himself to sleep in his room, Mama Obi sat alone in the parlor, staring at the family pictures hanging on the wall. She looked at Elijah's photo, at Henry's, at Amanda's. Her eyes hardened. "No," she whispered. "They cannot go free. They cannot trample on the Son who made them who they are. I carried all of you in my womb, but Charles carried all of you with his hands. And you dare repay him with cruelty." Tears flowed again, but this time there was fire in her heart. "By the God I serve," she swore quietly, "I will open your eyes. You will see shame for the way you treated your brother. You will taste your own medicine." The family mansion was unusually quiet that Sunday afternoon. Mama Obi had called all her children to gather. Elijah arrived in his black Range Rover, looking sharp in his Agbada. Henry drove in with his Lexus, sunglasses on, proud and arrogant. Amanda came in her Mercedes with her husband, both whispering to each other as they stepped out. They all entered the living room with smiles, pretending nothing had happened. But Charles was already there, sitting quietly in a simple shirt and trousers, his eyes red but steady. Mama Obi sat beside him, her wrapper tightly tied, her face stern. The siblings settled in, looking around curiously. "Elijah, Henry, Amanda," Mama Obi said firmly, "I called you here because today, the truth will be spoken in this house. the truth none of you can run from. They shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances. Charles slowly stood up. His voice was calm, but every word shook the room. My brothers, my sister, when I came back from America, I told you I lost everything. I told you I was framed, deported, and left with nothing. I said I was poor, and I begged for your help. That was my story. He paused, his eyes sweeping across their faces. Amanda swallowed hard. Elijah frowned. Henry smiled faintly, trying to look unconcerned. Charles' voice grew louder. But the truth is, it was all a lie. A test. A test of love. A test of loyalty. I wanted to see if, after everything I did for you, you would still stand by me if I had nothing. Gasps filled the room. Mema Obi nodded silently, tears in her eyes. Charles continued, his voice breaking with emotion. I am not poor. I was never deported. The government never seized my properties. My estates are still standing. My hotels are still running. My businesses are still booming across America, Dubai, and London. I am still a billionaire, richer than I have ever been. He pulled out his phone, swiped through pictures of his skyscrapers, his fleets of cars, his mansions abroad. He dropped the phone on the table for all of them to see. Elijah's eyes widened. Henry shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Amanda gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Charles' tears fell as he spoke. But you, my blood, failed me. Elijah, you lied to me and chased me out of your house like a stranger. Henry, you told me to become your gateman in the same kind of house I once built for you. Amanda, you shut your door on me, pretending times were hard, while living in comfort that I gave you. Mema Obi slammed her hand on the table, her voice trembling with both anger and sorrow. Did you hear him? Did you hear what your brother just said? After all he did for you, you rejected him because you thought he was poor. You betrayed blood. You betrayed love. May God judge all of you for this wickedness. She broke into tears, covering her face with her wrapper. Charles' shoulders shook as he struggled to control his emotions. He turned his face away from them, his voice thick with pain. I wish I could say I forgive you. I wish I could say I still have a place for you in my life. But the truth is, you have killed the brother in me. I have seen your hearts. You only loved my money, not me. And now I know where I stand. He took a deep breath, wiped his tears, and said the words that pierced their souls. From today, I want nothing to do with any of you. You are dead to me as siblings. My only family in this house is Mama. She alone stood by me, not knowing I was testing her too. As for the rest of you, enjoy the wealth I gave you, but you will never see me again. Charles picked up his bag and walked out of the living room. The sound of his footsteps echoed like thunder in their ears. Elijah rushed to his feet, stammering, Charles, wait. I can explain. Henry stood frozen, his pride suddenly crushed. Amanda burst into tears, calling after him, Brother, please, don't leave us like this. But Charles did not turn back. He walked out of the mansion, his head high, his heart broken, but his decision final. Mama Obi collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably, while her other children sat in silence, the weight of shame pressing down on them like a mountain. Outside, the sun blazed in the sky as Charles stepped into his car, a black G-Wagon waiting at the gate, his personal driver already standing by. He entered, shut the door, and whispered to himself, let them live with their shame. My test is over. My chapter with them is closed. The car drove away slowly, leaving behind a mansion drowning in regret, guilt, and silence. From this emotional story we'll have come to know that true love is tested not in times of abundance, but in times of lack. Family is not who shares your blood, but who stands by you when you have nothing. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy loyalty. Never forget the hands that lifted you when you were down. Betrayal from family hurts the most, but it also teaches you who your true family really is. Thank you so much for watching this emotional story. What do you think about how Charles' family treated him? Was he right to cut them off completely? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read them. If this story touched you, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who loves emotional stories. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss the next powerful episode.